opportunity really does come to pass and not to pause. So fair play to you, you were out like a light, Paddy. And also just want to say thanks to the Minister for coming along and listening to what we have to say. Now it gets difficult. Trying to follow those two ladies, Rita and Amy, and those positive stories, it's a little bit difficult. I'm going to take a slightly different angle on it. I've been here all morning trying to figure out what I'm going to say. But I'm going to concentrate a little bit on the technical side of things. AT Network, we started about in 2011. We started on the basis that we were listening to what was going on in policy changes, and at the same time understanding them the way we wanted to understand them. We at that time being people with disabilities. And the dire need we felt for, at the time, direct payment. That was our focus more so than anything else. So with that in mind, I thought that was Marco. Sorry, I have to keep an eye on my time because I waffle. Okay, so anyway, with that in mind, we set up AT Network. And the idea of AT Network was, what we said was, how can we bring about direct payment without any changes for a startup, right? Operating within all of the existing rules. We knew back in 2011 they were looking to close down organizations, so we couldn't imagine them supporting 100 individuals, whether they were companies or other words, or maybe 1,000 individuals. So what we did was we set up a little mothership, right? And that became a charity, the AT Network, and it had all the rules and regulations that every other group would have, right? Any other service provider. And we received money on an individual, on the basis of individuals. And what we do then is we pass that money on to the individual family. There's no peace, health, or anything like that. We pass it all on, and we support that individual family to create a plan over 3 to 5 years. A plan that would be understandable and reflects the interest of the individual. That's from a family point of view, and we keep that. It may operate through the main organization for a period of 3 to 6 months, and then it moves entirely into their own individual company. We also do that for individuals with disabilities, and they're the main group we have, where individuals themselves develop a circle of support, right? Now, the idea of a circle of support was very simple. Initially, it was to help individuals to make sure they got their returns done and they managed their money okay and all of that. But we're seeing far more than that. We're linking into the community, just like Rita was explaining there. People are coming much more part of their own community all over again through individuals that are supporting them, etc. We are bringing a new visibility to people with disabilities. People with disabilities are upskilling in how to operate different things, etc. Now, I could go on for another long little while. I'm going to tell you just a few short stories. One I'm always thinking of with this guy in Limerick. Services couldn't handle. They would have given us $1 million a week just to take them off their hands. Well, maybe not quite, Marion is here. But they would have given us, and after 18 months, he had a much fuller life. His public health nurse now he hires directly, and he's out and at college every morning at half 7, right? And he's saving. He reduced his budget by between $1,500 and $2,000 a month, and that's 18 months on, and that's one person. And he's now studying international business, and he's going to spend next year, I think, in Sweden or somewhere like that. 3 years ago, he was what you would call bedridden and a chief complainer, etc. And today, he's really driving AT forward, and I'm having to say, slow down a little bit. You know, another family, I remember at one stage when somebody started and they were coming from the service and they were 3 months waiting, or they were given about 3 years before they would get work experience. They took on their own individual budget, and within 2 months they were a volunteer in a local pet shop in the city, and it's changed their lives completely. Huge demand was made on them. They were treated like an ordinary person. People didn't see the wheelchair and expected a huge demand of them. Today, I'm here to say to you in many ways that individual payments, direct payments, self-directed, and there's so many different ways to describe, its time has come. Nobody can stop it. We mightn't have seen it coming, but at this stage, it's here to stay. And nothing as powerful as when the right time for an idea has come. That fly is playing games with me. Okay. The other thing is that in that sense, it's timely today and what we're going to do so quickly after the day. For ourselves, families, be proud. Right? It's tough going. We've changed lots of things in the past. Maybe it was the parents of yesteryear that changed so many different things. But we changed it, and we're going to change this now. And in actual fact, given a half a chance, HSE will support and co. They have supported us in so many different ways. Over the last 2 years and for 1 more year, we are a demonstration project, and we are going to give back results and findings, and I'm hoping Sinead will talk to you a little bit more about that. But afterwards today, I'm happy to answer any particular questions. But the life-changing for people with disabilities and their family is huge, and it's so rewarding when we have control and flexibility, and we have a responsibility to manage our own lives. Thank you for now.
Thanks, Martin. And I'd also like to thank Inclusion Ireland and Unsuitable for the opportunity to be here today to talk a little bit about the research that I'm doing and to discuss some of the preliminary findings of the research that I'm doing. So, as it already has been pointed out, I'm from the Centre for Disability Law and Policy at NUI Galway, and I'd like to just make it clear that I'm independent. Okay, this research is being funded by the HSE and DFI, and that's very important because when I go to talk to the leaders from AT, those people that are directing their own payments, and when I ask them what's good, what's bad, what are the advantages and disadvantages of direct payments, they feel like they can tell me the truth because everything they say to me will be anonymized and I will feed it back in my report. So that's very important. So the aim of this project is to evaluate the costs and benefits, so the advantages and the disadvantages of direct payments, of the pilot program, the support-led direct payment program that AT is facilitating. The way we're doing this is by interviewing all of the leaders that are getting direct payments through AT. So I'm doing this by doing semi-structured interviews. So the leaders invite me into their homes usually, we sit down and we have a chat. I don't have a long list of questions to ask them. Generally, I just ask 1 or 2 questions and they talk. They talk for 2 or 3 hours about how their lives have changed. And I'll talk a little bit later on about how their lives have changed. Secondly, I'm interviewing stakeholders. So I'm interviewing service providers, and I'm also interviewing people from the HSE, from the Department of Expenditure and Reform, because I want to get the 2 sides of the story. I'm also going to do some focus groups with some personal assistance from people who are getting their payments through AT, and to the circles of support, so the people that are supporting these leaders who are directing their own payments. At the moment, I'm getting through the leaders' interviews, so the preliminary findings that I talk about today are from the leaders. So it's what they have told me about how their lives have changed. Three words that have stood out to me every time I've sat down with a leader and talked about their direct payments: empowerment, flexibility, and confidence. They have all talked about being empowered, directing their own payments, being in charge of their own company. They're employing their own personal assistants and support workers. They're in charge of the hours that their personal assistants work. This means that they have greater flexibility in the way that they choose to run their lives. What direct payments has allowed them is more personal assistant hours compared to when they were getting their service provision through a traditional service provision model. Because a traditional service provider isn't taking an administrative cost off the top, generally there's more hours, the money, the payment that they get goes further. They get more personal assistant hours. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I've heard. Okay? So this flexibility. Individuals, leaders now can decide, Monday and Tuesday, I have some family coming in, don't really need a personal assistant on Monday and Tuesday. So they can hold on to those hours, and they can decide. One individual talked about the ability to be able to go to a concert at the weekend. They can bank those personal assistant hours and decide on Sunday, I'll go to Bruce Springsteen. Okay? Or go to a city, or go for a day out. Another leader talked about being able to go to choir. They've joined a choir. So they can get their personal assistance now out of hours, at the weekend and at the evening time. So the things that you and I and other people take for granted, the flexibility to do everyday things, these individuals are telling me that now with their direct payments, they're able to facilitate that. The empowerment they get from being the employee. Okay? A lot of leaders have talked about the respect that they get from their personal assistants and support workers now. They've talked about the respect that they get and the fact that the relationship that they have has changed. One leader talked about the fact that their personal assistant comes in every day and they go for a walk on the promenade by the beach. This is something that they love. And they often get stopped by people that say, you look like you're a family, you look like you're really happy together. And this empowerment, this direct payments, being able to employ their own personal assistant, a personal assistant that they have chosen themselves. You need to remember that somebody going through the traditional service provision model doesn't get a choice as to who their personal assistant is. Through the support-led direct payment model, a leader can sit down and interview many PAs and choose the one that they want to work with them. Okay, I'll let you draw your own conclusions from that. I'm not going to give you any conclusions on that, I'm just telling you the findings. Individuals, not with PAs, but leaders with support workers. So school leavers, for example, with support workers. They've talked about being able to learn skill sets. So having a support worker means that they can learn to make their breakfast in the morning. They're learning how to do laundry. They're learning how to get the bus. It's a bit like what Rita talked about with her daughter. Okay, so this is very, very important. There's a lot of paperwork involved in running your own company. These leaders have to file tax returns. They have to fill in timesheets for their PAs and social work and service workers, and they have to pay them. So usually the general consensus is they usually sit down for a couple of hours every weekend and they do their bookwork. all said that it's quite difficult, and they had a lot of reservations before joining AT and getting their direct payments, because they were unsure of how this paperwork was going to work. But there's circles of support, and the support that they're getting from AT seems to be working. And this is where competence comes in, that third word. One leader talked about how they worked in a company for 16 years. Okay, and they did bookwork, they did paperwork, and they really enjoyed it. But then their health started to deteriorate, and they had to retire early. And since then, they had a personal assistant that was chosen for them that used to come into their house every day. They didn't particularly like some of their personal assistants. They didn't have a good relationship with them. This individual is now a leader and in charge of their own company. It took about 6 months for this person to get used to doing bookwork. You know, they didn't have the confidence that they had when they used to work in a company. But now they have the confidence. They said that they could go and help other leaders do their bookwork. In actual fact, this leader talked about wanting to get a job, wanting to go out and work and get maybe 10 or 15 hours of work every week doing bookwork. That's what this paperwork, that's the confidence this individual has got. It's not all rosy in the garden. Other leaders have talked about how difficult paperwork is, but they're getting the support that they need. The reason why one of our leaders, or one of AT's leaders, joined AT was because their service provider brought in a rule that every PA that they hired had to have a FETEC Level 5 qualification. Now this leader lives in a city with a university, and this leader is quite a smart, intelligent person. And they loved hiring personal assistants who were students in the university and who would come in and talk about the courses that they were doing and the things that they were learning. When this FETAC Level 5 qualification rule came in, this leader talked about not being able to get the PAs that they wanted. You know, the PAs that made their life worthwhile and that learned from them and that the leader learned from these PAs. So that's why this leader joined AT. Now this individual has complete control over the personal assistant that they hire. They have choice. This is what gives them confidence. One thing that I've been trying to tease out with the leaders is the difference between their lives when they were getting their personal assistance and help through the traditional service provision model and now through the direct payments model. And one in particular talked about how they were bullied by their service provider. They went to their service provider to talk about getting their personal assistant through the direct payments model. And they got emails from their service provider saying that there was no way you're going to be able to direct your own payments. You're not going to be able to be independent. You won't be able to do this. It won't work for you. But this leader persisted, and they joined AT, support-led direct payment system, and they're now very confident. But they use the word bullied. And most of the leaders that I've interviewed have talked about how poor the personal assistance and the support and service provision they were getting from their service provider. I asked them what they thought about the future of direct payments and the model that they're using. Most of them said that it's not for everybody. One model won't fit everybody, because some of the paperwork is cumbersome, and of course, running a company is difficult. What they have said is that going forward, they would love to be able to not just direct their personal assistant or care social worker or care worker, but they would also love to be able to go out and purchase occupational therapy or physical therapy, buy a wheelchair, or purchase the aids that they need. That's the next step forward in this. A lot of the leaders said that there would always be a role for service providers, that they would need to provide services that leaders could purchase their services. What all of the leaders said, every single one of them, was that society needs to change. People need to be more accepting of persons with disabilities in the community, and if society changes, then lives for people with disabilities will improve. One last thing, most of the leaders that I talked about discussed wanting to be able to work in gainful employment without losing any benefits, without losing their medical cards, or without losing anything else. It made me think that we need a bridger. We need some organisation or company, or we need a bridging gap that would match leaders, individuals who could provide, who could do work for 10 to 15 hours a week with an employer who needs that service, who needs that employee for 10 to 15 hours a week. So I think that's all of the findings that I wanted to discuss today. So I just wanted to say that the research is going very well. Like I said, there are some flaws. They are coming through, and hopefully this report, the full report, will be due in possibly October, but I'd like to keep disseminating these preliminary findings as we go on through the research. Okay, thank you.
I'm just conscious that we're rushing you through this. We're actually to stay in your seats for almost 2 hours, but we're on the home straight, as they say. There's water at the back there, I think, refreshments. And is the room very warm?
Yeah, it is very warm.
I thought it was just me. Is there, we'll see if we can get the temperature just lowered a bit. I'm just going to take a 2-minute pause. Do not leave your seats. I want the Minister to hear the UK experience, so I'm going to just hold for a minute till he comes back. And as I say at the end, then we'll open it up to questions at the end. Does anyone want to ask anything at this point, just before we? Sorry.
I was just ask,
Yeah.
is the research in every county?
Okay, I'll just check that now.
Research in what?
Sinead, is the research in every county?
All the leaders are based in a lot of counties around Ireland. Not every county is covered.
The members of the 18 network would come from right around the country, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So, at the back. The questions in terms of the presentations, today has been recorded, as I said, so that will go up on Inclusion Ireland's website and go up on our YouTube channel, I believe it is, and it'll go up on Down Syndrome Ireland, the link will go up on Down Syndrome Ireland's website. And all the presenters have given their presentations to us, so we'll make them available on the website.